From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Anxiety Project podcast. Welcome to 296, where I'm talking about my experience talking to other people, talking to my clients over the many years that I've been doing this about anxiety, about their hopelessness, about their depression, what I've learned, what I've picked up being a coach. When I first started talking to people, I was really bad at it. And so I've learned so many lessons over the years talking to people, listening to their stories, and developing a plan, helping them develop a plan to overcome anxiety naturally, to not depend on medications and external means to numb, soothe, and distract you, but to tap into more of a primitive side and tap into faith, tap into a structure, because anxiety disorder is order that is disrupted. There's no order, there's too much chaos in this person's life. So today I'm talking about the really big lessons I've taken away from my coaching, talking to people suffering. And so the first thing I want to talk about today is that you don't have to scratch too far beneath the surface of someone's life to reveal something tragic, something malevolent, something embarrassing, something that's plaguing a person. It's not just within my coaching, because I've already set myself up to, well, to really unravel the mysteries and the suffering of the person I'm speaking with, because they signed up for coaching. They connected with me already on the podcast, on the channel. But I've noticed even in a Starbucks, when I listen to people, there's something about me where I pay attention to you, and sooner or later, people people will reveal underlying truths that are very terrifying or tragic. And I've noticed that because I've been paying attention, or because I am vulnerable, because I speak the truth. Because as you guys know on my channel, I talk about the embarrassing moments of my past. I talk about how I cheated and lied and manipulated the world just so I could get things in, for things to go my way. I had various panic episodes that were embarrassing and humiliating that I talk about. So I'm honest, and a lot of people who watch these videos, they see that and they want to talk to me because they feel like they can be honest with me. They feel like they're living in a world where they have to hold on to these things because it's embarrassing, or if they say something that it'll cause them even more shame. But by holding on to it, it'll cause more of a weight and a burden to you. And so it's really important to heal that you begin by expressing your vulnerabilities and insecurities to someone that you trust. Okay. And that's one thing I noticed. The next thing I noticed is the worst thing that has happened to you is the worst thing that has happened to you. And what I mean by that is, well, you could be feeling ashamed that you have had anxiety for a long time, and that your suffering that you're contending with is trivial, and that, well, I shouldn't be suffering over this because other people have it worse than I do. But the worst thing that has happened to you is the worst thing that has happened to you. That's your level, that's your tolerance level. So each person's tolerance level is different. Some person is dealing with social anxiety, and yet this other person is extremely social and is a social butterfly. Well, it's not useful to compare yourself, because your dragon is your dragon. You haven't adapted to the level of suffering you are now experiencing in your life. So this is your challenge. And it's not Bob's, it's not Susan's, it's not Samantha's, it's your challenge. And you need to raise the bar just enough so that you can get there, right? And so it's a battle between you and yourself. And it's not useful to continue to hang around people that's telling you that, oh, that's nothing to worry about. That's nothing to worry about. Well, maybe it is, and maybe you need to tackle it. Okay. It's important for me to help my client build on their level of competency, one rung at a time. So, what's the minimal but most effective step forward toward this dragon they are contending? First, they have to name the dragon, then they have to take that minimal but effective step towards slaying that dragon. So then we will set a goal for the week, and well, it has to be attainable. That's the thing, because if you don't see yourself progressing towards something, then there's no positive emotion and you will stay in hopelessness. So we have to shrink down the steps to get to the end goal. So what's the first step? Well, if you're afraid of, say, riding on the subway, the first thing we should probably do is to look at pictures of the subway, or start with imagining yourself walking towards the subway station. I've had a client park their car outside the bus stop and sit there, right? Because they had this anxiety of getting on a certain bus and leaving a certain part of town. And so they would report back to me and say, hey, I sat there until my anxiety lessened and lessened until I got bored of sitting here. And that's your amygdala getting accustomed to, well, the tolerance that you're just on the edge of, right? You're just on that edge and you're getting bored of it, and you're seeing that you could handle these steps into the unknown. And then I also learned that that anxiety for these people that come to me, they come to me saying, oh, I'm suffering from anxiety disorder. I'm suffering every day. I can't sleep. This is a sign to this person that something needs to change. It's like the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. You have to transform. Otherwise, you will potentially harm yourself seriously by staying in this anxiety response, staying in a certain way of being for a long time. It's serious. It's serious. So, anxiety for people, it's the body's way of communicating that something's not right in your life and you need to change something. If this suffering is not met with humility and awareness, but it's met with bitterness and resentment, just like Cain, then there's no way to burn and get rid of the dead wood, right? You're holding on to scraps. That's not good. This is the phoenix reemerging from the ashes. That's what needs to happen in people's lives. When you move from adolescence to adulthood, many things are sacrificed in order to build upon maturity, right? As you grow older, a lot of people stay in their dopey ways in from when they were 20, and now they're 30 and 40, and it's causing them so much harm. You have to grow out of all of these habits, and that's for us to talk about, right? You have to decide like what's working and what's not working. But to find that out, you actually have to venture off into the unknown to discover that. You have to look into other people's lives who have transcended suffering and learn from them. What did they do? What did they eat? What is their sleeping patterns? What are their habits every single day? And well, taking on one of those habits one at a time. And so you will remain in the tyranny of your own self if you do not decide to take a leap of faith and walk towards the promised land. That's the Moses story, right? The Israelites leave the tyranny of the state, right? And they move towards something. They can't see it, they can't touch it, they can't taste it, but they take a leap of faith and they wander around the desert for many, many years this in the hopes of attaining something better. And it gets worse before it gets better. That's another big thing I learned is anxiety will get worse for people before it gets better, meaning you have to incorporate a whole new way of being and you're going to feel like an imposter. There's going to be a cognitive dissonance between the two selves because the one self wants to hold on to your old ways, old habits, materialism, and drugs, alcohol, whatever you're holding on to, reassurance seeking, Dr. Google, all of these things. But then there's this other part that wants to change, and you have to take this leap into this other domain where you have to then separate yourself and sever many of the ties between you and your old habits. And it gets worse because you'll feel like an imposter. You'll feel like it's not working. You will feel like, well, to be on your own, to be independent and to separate yourself from these dependencies is a difficult thing because, yeah, some of them are you suffer withdrawal symptoms. You have to learn to adapt being on your own or contending with the suffering when no one else is around.
Anxiety recovery program
And
is
you know
available
that,
over
and you
at
know that, but and you want to reach out to
unpluganxiety.com.
people at
Included
the
is
most
the
crucial
releasing
time, but
trauma
you
exercise.
also feel like, no, this
where
is
you
your
walk
cross to
through
carry.
release
And if you don't
past trauma using
confront this
an
forthrightly right here and
NLP-based
now,
audio
then
recording
how will
by
you ever
myself.
move beyond
That's
your
at
current state?
unpluganxiety.com.
How will you
Go
grow
there
into
to
a new
learn
person?
more.
How will you emerge from the ashes? And people need a guide. This is all another thing I noticed. People need structure. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, anxiety disorder is order that is disrupted. There's too much order. The person is swimming in chaos. The person is swimming in too much uncertainty, and there's not enough of what they understand. So when I talk about building on these habits, I mean, they're building upon things that they now understand, right? By incorporating them, by doing them every day, keep making it a practice to them, setting a vision, setting goals, it'll help cement in predictability. So when you wake up in the morning at the same time and you're eating the same foods and you're meditating at the same time, you're going for that walk at the same time, yeah, that's going to help you cement in predictability. You're not waking up thinking, what should I eat? Oh, and you're not gathering all your things and running out the door because you've slept in a little bit too late. No, you're waking up at the same time and you're orderly now, and you have to build upon this orderly. We need a map, okay? We need a map to put the fragments together. So when my clients discuss their rocky history with anxiety and the traumas that they had, you can see them connect the dots between their old habits and how they wound up in those situations. That was a huge revelation for me, connecting my previous lifestyle to staying up late and going on dating websites and like watching pornography or alcohol or negative relationships, all of these things, all these little micro steps I was doing. I looked to myself and I said, oh, I caused this. It wasn't the universe punishing me. I was just walking down a bad path and I was not aware of that at all. And that's the Jonah and the whale story, by the way, because Jonah wound up in the belly of the whale, just like me, suffering from anxiety disorder. That's the belly of the whale. That's hell. And what do you do when you're in the belly of the whale? Instead of cursing fate, you may have stupidly walked into that belly. You just like Jonah did. He contemplated his life in that whale. Where did I go wrong? Where did I step off the path? God called forth for me to help the people of Nineveh, and I turned my back and I ran away. No wonder I'm here in the belly of the whale. No wonder. So that's useful. And I've noticed just talking to many people, we connect those dots through our one-on-one sessions. And then also why we hold on to trauma. Another thing I witnessed talking to people is because people are one-sided in how they perceive the trauma, the experience that they went through. They need a tool to unravel the trauma and let it go. And this is something I learned in neuro-linguistic programming, something I did on myself when it comes to trauma, and it works. Okay. And I would ask my client in a meditative state when they're comfy and relaxed, but they're reliving the trauma, and I could see in their face and their body language that they're reliving that trauma. And at the height of the trauma, I can see them tense up. I can see their eyes, get tense, their face get tense, and maybe sometimes cry. And, during this, I asked them to reframe the event. And how can you perceive this event as being a good thing for you? That this is actually a positive thing, that it's a blessing that you went through this. One thing I've noticed with people who've gone through horrific childhood trauma is that how they speak now is totally different. Whereas they say, if I didn't go through that trauma, I wouldn't be in this position now to help people, to be a voice for people, to be a guide for people. Not only that, though, it made me stronger as a person. It made me stronger and more grateful in my life. So, how can you perceive this trauma in a different way, in a positive way, beneficial to you? And what would you do differently next time so that you can no longer hold on to this trauma? Because a lot of people hold on to trauma because their amygdala, their ancient primitive system is trying to, not prevent, it's trying to prevent for this from happening again. So like, how do I avoid the pit that I walked into? And so if you go over that in detail, if you write it out, or if you talk to someone about it, or if you work through a meditation on that, then you can unravel the truths around that trauma. Maybe if I did this differently, I wouldn't have wound up in that situation. So in the end, perhaps it was God's plan that you went through this suffering to make you into a person who can transcend the suffering. It made you into a stronger person. And as a consequence, you're helping others transcend their suffering. You can talk to the person at the Starbucks about what you went through and how you overcame that particular event in your life. People need to hear these things because we're always encountering a dragon or two in our lives. And it's fairly often that we are. And I also learned that if you're half in when it comes to committing yourself to recovery, then you're only going to get minimal results. A lot of people that I talk to, they listen to me and they take my advice, but they go after the sessions, they don't put in the work. They don't write down the letters that I assign to them, or they don't progress to the goals because I can only do so much. It's your obligation, I guess you could say, because you want to get better and your potential is waiting there dormant, waiting to It's like a vast reservoir of potential. It's waiting to be manifested. And well, if you don't tap into any of that, then you're just going to stay the same person. You're going to stay the same. So many people don't want to reach out into the unknown, even if they're small goals. A lot of people feel like it's just too much for them. So if you're half in and half out, that's not a great place to be, because you're not going to fully commit. You're not going to fully sign up for a course. You're not going to fully jump on a new job or jump out of a bad relationship. You're going to cling on to something. And it's a leap of faith. It really is a leap of faith to jump into the unknown. I also learned that if you're half in and half out, you're going to experience a lot of turbulence emotionally. Because if you don't take that leap into the unknown, you're not going to get the results you're hoping for. And I'll give you an example. I've had clients coming to me week after week, not progressing very much. Very much. Sometimes I would see a client where they don't progress at all. And why they're not progressing is because they they know that they should quit a habit, but they just can't take that leap. They can't make that first step. And my job as a coach is to help them make that first step, right? What's the minimal step? Maybe smoking, say, 7 cigarettes a day, you reduce it to 6 for the next week. Like that's really, maybe it'll come down to that. But to some people that has to be done. Some clients would not even do that, and I just don't see them moving forward. And so if you're not committing yourself fully to your recovery, then you're not going to get the results you want. A lot of people also quit habits after a week, 2 weeks, a month, or 2 months of doing them. And it's really important to stick to a habit, especially one that is linked to health and well-being, like meditation or exercise. It's really important because you're not going to see the results right away. It actually takes a long time for your body to adjust. It takes a long time to see some sort of change. And also, more importantly, I think it's really important that you see yourself stick to something. That was my thing, is I always quit things in my life, and I felt I just saw myself as someone who just wasn't persistent whatsoever. And I wanted to commit to something. And so that's why I committed to meditation and journaling and waking up at a certain time, is because I wanted to prove to myself that no matter, even when I'm experiencing a hard day, I can still continue the habits that I know to be true. And what makes something true? It's the spirit that the habit embodies. Being on the fence, Christ says, if you are neither hot nor cold, but lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. Meaning, Christ will not embrace you if you are half in on your faith. Because when life gets stormy and it rocks the boat and you fall into the water, without the faith, you'll drown instead of walking on the water. And there's a point in the Gospels, I can't remember who it was because I'm very new at at my readings on the scriptures, but Christ invites one of his disciples out from the boat to walk on the water. And the disciple was walking on the water and he fell through the water. And the disciple was like, "Why did that happen?" Christ said, "You lost faith for a moment. You lost faith for a moment." How much are you willing to give up in order to grow closer to the infinite, to God? People are not what they say they are. People are not what they say they are. They're only running at 40%. They don't realize they have a reservoir of potential lurking beneath the surface. And so those unmarked pathways you now know exist, you decide to walk down. And because you decide to walk down, you realize you're very fallible, that you don't know. You're starting from square one. You feel like a fool and you feel like a failure. And that's humility, because to bring it back around, you're a student. And this is a battle against you and your own self. And that's where I'm going to leave it today on this podcast episode. Thank you, everyone, for being a listener. Thank you for being a supporter. I'm so grateful to be here with you every week for this podcast. Make sure you check out the Meditation Monday. Every Monday, I post a meditation here on the podcast channel. Wherever you're listening, there is a meditation. This week, I have a meditation on forgiveness, releasing the ties, the emotional ties of the people around us that you may not even know exist, but you will feel a weight. If you do this meditation, you will feel a weight lift from your shoulders. I guarantee it. Let me know what you think of it. Rise above anxiety. I'll see you next time. My anxiety recovery program is available over at unpluganxiety.com. Included is the releasing trauma exercise. This is where you can walk through and release past trauma using an NLP-based audio recording by myself. That's at unpluganxiety.com. Go there to learn more.